Today I'm gonna talk about a champion that they're gonna release this month, but it's not the champion we're all waiting for. We're waiting for the fusion information is gonna come tomorrow, but today Plarium shared with us a new champion, which is the faction or the Unity faction champion for the dwarves. We knew he was coming, maybe for at least I was expecting he would come with more champions, not on his own, but for now he is the only one we have. Let's have a look at it. Hi, Senda here and welcome to another raid video. In this case, Plarium shared with us, like I said, the only champion that's gonna come as an extra, well, the second champion, you'll see tomorrow, the second champion that's gonna come on this patch for February, and is no more, no less than the Unity faction for the dwarves. That was the last faction, well, not the last faction, but the next faction. You know, they're going in order, every month they're releasing one, and for this month, we have dwarves, which means next month we're gonna have the Unity faction for the Shadow King, and in the next month we're gonna have for the Sylvan Watchers. And maybe, since there's no more factions, they're gonna have to start to release all the things, hopefully a new faction. But until then, let's have a look at the champion and let's have a look at what Plarium told us. Basically, they're just saying we're happy to introduce a new champion with faction Unity skills, Admiral Blacktusk. Here you can see him in a bit more of a nice render. I don't see any tusks other than the ones of the bulls that he has in the armor. He's the only tusk, black tusk, but he doesn't have any. And as you can see, a pretty cool black and golden armor, and of course the banner at the back with the Unity, with the faction that he represents, which are the dwarves. Other than that, Plarium is saying here, Admiral Blacktusk is a mighty warrior. We will not only be a great addition to your roster, but will significantly boost the abilities of your dwarves thanks to his faction Unity skills. And then blah blah blah, we can just go through what they're saying, or we can just have a look at the actual skills of the champion and make our own assumptions. I read through them before. I'm not going to spoil you yet what he's good or he's not good, but let's have a look at the skills, and he seems pretty interesting. First of all, he's a support champion. Being a support champion already tells me that he's probably not designed to deal damage. Again, the rest of his skills is interesting, but in terms of damage, it's only the A1 that deals damage. The A1, it's called Blacktusk's Axe, and it says attacks one enemy, 40% of placing a stun for one turn, and this debuff cannot be resisted when this champion is attacking out of their active turn. What does this mean? When he counterattacks, when there's some other ally attack champions, or you're doing like an extra attack, when you proc the mastery that you counterattack, basically every time you attack out of your turn, this debuff cannot be resisted. What does it mean? He doesn't need accuracy, but has only a 40% chance to apply it. Imagine 100%, it will be too broken. But with books, it will go to a 60%. So it's not a bad one. It's not a bad skill, not a bad A1. However, bosses are immune to this. So this skill against bosses, literally it just says attacks one enemy, 40% chance of nothing, attacks one enemy. On his A2, removes all debuffs from all allies, which is not bad, and then teams up with all allies, and the allies joining the attack, so basically an ally attack skill. This is cool, they removes all the debuffs first, because normally when your allies have fear, or they're stunned, or asleep, or anything, they just don't join the attack, so this skill just makes sure that all the allies are gonna join, and all the allies are gonna join the attack, basically. Again, this is pretty useful mostly on PvE, against Hydra, against any other bosses, but on Arena, I don't really see many of these champions with ally attack skills, or at least it's not part of the meta right now. And on his A3, and here's where we start seeing these faction Unity skills, removes all buffs from a target enemy and places a stun on them for 2 turns. 2 turns stun, not 1. This is interesting, but for this, so far, we need accuracy. And then it says, fills this champion's turn meter by 50%, fills this champion turn meter by an additional 10% for each buff removed from the target, which means if you steal 3 buffs, then you get an 80% increased turn meter, which is okay. And on top of that, the enemy is completely buffless and gets a stun for 2 turns, so very controlling. Then, if we have 2 dwarves, I mean him and another dwarf, 2 in total, the buff removal and stun cannot be resisted. Okay, makes sense because the rest of his kit doesn't ask for any accuracy. With 3 dwarves, so him and 2 more, resets the cooldown of these skills when an enemy is killed under stun placed by this champion. This is useful because it doesn't necessarily has to be himself who kills the enemy. It can be any other champion ally that kills the enemy. As long as that stun has been placed by himself, then this skill gets reset, and then we can use it again, remove all the buffs again, and another 2-turn stun. It's pretty good to kind of target or one-shot one enemy, because it's also has synergies with the third part of this with 3 faction unity allies that says allies deal double damage to targets under stun debuffs placed by this champion. Again, it's a very 100% focused killing one enemy. You stun him, you rip him off all the buffs, you have ally attacks, allies deal double damage. However, the problem I see so far in his kit is that this stun is one enemy, single target. The same with this A3, is also a single target, not 3 turns, like 2 turns here, 1 turn here, but overall we're just targeting one single enemy. So again, not bad, but against bosses and against PvE is quite limited. And on the passive, here's where it gets a bit more interesting and adds a lot of more things that really are going to be shining in Arena. And it says, allies will counterattack whenever they lose a 10% or more of their HP from a single hit. If there are multiple champions, this only one will activate. This basically means, a 10% max HP in one single hit is pretty much anything. Any hit that will, not anything, but 10% is very, very small from the max HP of a champion. Which means like, this is almost constantly having a permanent counterattack in our champions. Of course, this is not going to trigger if our allies are under stone skin, are under shields. This has to be, and it affects directly to their max HP. But like I said, a 10% of the max HP is pretty easy to lose, and a counterattack on all the allies is very useful. However, it's very useful again in Arena, of course, it's very useful anywhere, but on PvE this would be. This in PvE will be something super nice to have on Hydra, to have on, I don't know, in other dungeons, mostly in PvE. In Arena, it's good, but on Arena it kind of goes from 100 to 0, from 0 to 100. You have all the health, you get hit by an enemy, you get one shot. That's more or less how it usually happens. But then it says, okay, faction unities. If we have himself and another dwarf, whenever an ally places a fear, true fear, freeze, provoke, sleep, stun, petrification, fills that champion's turn meter by 20%. That champion's turn meter, which means like for debuffers, is more for controllers than debuffers. The problem I see here is there's not that many. I guess it also applies to himself. Whenever an ally places a stun, for example, himself fills turn meter 20%. I don't know if it will also apply to himself or not, but there is not that many dwarves that apply these things. You have Tormin for this freeze, fear, true fear, there's not that many, provokes, you have Molly Tankard, petrification, you don't have any, I think, sleep, you have Cornelia, but it's not really used anywhere. And basically, if one ally places one of these control debuffs on the enemies, that ally gets a 20% turn meter, sorry. With 3 dwarves, including himself, whenever an ally is attacked, 50% of placing decreased resistance and 30% decreased speed on the attacker for 1 turn. If the ally is under block damage, unkillable, ally protection or stone skill, the chance increases to 100%, and if there are multiple champions, blah blah blah. So basically, if an ally gets attacked, not only is gonna counterattack, or probably is gonna counterattack, but also what that champion is gonna do is gonna apply a decreased resistance and a decreased speed on the attacker. Decreased resistance is not really used anywhere. There's nothing really that the need of accuracy is so high that we need to apply decreased resistance. And decreased speed, it will be useful in any boss, and Hydra, for example, is one of the most needed debuffs. However, on Arena is not one of the most needed debuffs. And the other downside I see on this skill is that to apply decreased resistance and decreased speed, he needs accuracy. Anywhere it says this cannot be resisted in the same way that the A1 says it, or then the A3 says that this debuff cannot be resisted. In this case, these two can be resisted, and I don't see any reason or why would we want to build Admiral Blacktusk with accuracy, because he doesn't need accuracy for anything else on his kit. And finally, and this is kind of the cherry on the top of his kit, at the start of each round, places a stone skin buff on all allies for 1 turn. If there are multiple, blah blah blah. So basically, what this makes is that we don't need to put any stone skin set on our champions if we're using a team of 4 champions for arena. For the rest of the content, I mean, what kind of content can we want to do with only 4 dwarves? There's not that much. Yeah, dwarves is a powerful faction, but stone skin is really only used in arena. Fair enough, I mean, that makes sense with the whole thing with the dwarves, because the dwarves are normally quite low in speed. Maybe because they have short legs, cannot run too fast, but this is a very go second team kind of skill. His whole kit is a very go second type of set, because you have counter attacks, you have all these stuns, you have ally attacks. I'm not sure yet what are the stats of this guy, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to be to 120 speed. I mean, with this armor, I'm sure it's going to be more on the 90, 95, 100 max, rather than being super fast. In terms of aura, increases ally accuracy in all battles by 60 and the speed in all battles by 15 only to dwarves, which makes sense with what I just said. In terms of the speed, dwarves is not the fastest faction. So with that said, what other dwarves can we use him? And since we've seen, is a champion that is going to be mainly focused probably on arena, but on arena he's very I mean, applying so many debuffs, or in this case applying so many stuns, stealing buffs, this all smells a lot like polymorph, and he has no other way in his kit to counter polymorph. He's not immune to it. So what other kind of good dwarves champions can we take to arena? Because in terms of PvE, he doesn't bring that much, apart from the stuns, but that's only useful in waves. Against bosses are immune to stun. The ally attack, okay, that's nice, but it's only 1 skill. And in terms of the passives, I mean, stone skin is not really meta on PvE. Decreased resistance, decreased speed is not really necessary either. And increasing the turn meter by 20% every time an ally applies one of these debuffs, I mean, there's not that many. Who could we use here on arena that could potentially be or make of a good team? Frolny, after the rework, he's a pretty okay nuker. You don't see him very often, but he's able, especially in long battles, he accumulates a lot of damage. He's able to increase his defense, I think, his HP as well, so he can smack very hard if the battle gets too long. Tranda, even though she's been kind of nerfed, or she was nerfed towards the Hydra, she's a powerful champion to remove, or to at least help removing enemy stone skins. Both hits deal 50% more damage. Still, I don't think she's fully able to fully destroy a stone skin, but she also applies HP burn, which that does help removing the stone skin. Who else is normally seen in arena? Goffred, less and less, but has certainly certain potential. Has a block damage here that can be pretty annoying as well. I think he also is able to stun, and in this case it's an AoE stun, so it's much better than the single targets from Admiral Blacktusk. On A1, a provoke also has very good synergies with the Unity faction skill. Who else? Mountain King is got very behind. Is like a very, all he does is attacks one enemy, attacks one enemy, attacks one enemy. It doesn't do much. His damage is okay, but it's not crazy mind blowing. Molly, she used to be seen more often than now. Now is more of a mid-tier for Hydra, maybe not Nightmare, Brutal Hydra, she can do a pretty good job. Has a very powerful AoE provoke in this case, also has a revive. Here also has a revive, so also useful champion. Samarna, Hirano, not for arena, I don't really see him. Tormin, yeah, Tormin, he applies a freeze, he's 100% an arena champion. Senda maybe also can be, she's very powerful. She's, like I said, one of the exceptions that are dwarves that are very fast, 113. And maybe Arnor is also 100% arena champion. He's also able to apply stone skin. He's able to he increases his own attack, so he can hit pretty hard, but it's not part of the meta. You don't see him very often. Same with any of the epics. None of them are really like an arena champion. So far, this is the champion unity. The next champion unity that's coming, it's not bad. It has an interesting kit, but I see him quite limited, especially compared to other crazy, mind-blowing unity faction like can be, I don't know, like Fina, Blade of Arabia from the High Elves is a crazy one. Lawson Keleth from the Night Revenant, the last one they added to the game, is also a pretty interesting one. I don't know guys what you think. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if you would be interested in pulling him. If you do, you would use him, with who and where. Any other thing, like I said, leave it down there in the comments. Over here, recommended video like always, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.